Surrounded by an ocean of snow, the luggage tram was an unforgiving sanctuary for the group of strangers. As the sky plummeted from the greyish hues of day to those dismal blacks of night, the tensions of the survivors rose. All was silent on the tram, other than the ghostly whispers of the wind. Like the rats around them, the individuals searched relentlessly for a source of warmth. And as those frozen breaths became all the more palpable, the young professor began to surmise that this would be an interesting night, one of Shakespearean proportions, the titular character of which would be the yellow-toothed scoundrel with an interesting name, but he couldn't be for sure. Each played their part as they continued on the Gothic nightmare on a Russian tram.
Something back here, anything that can help us survive. Blankets, coats, tops.
There may be some supplies in the emergency box.
Precisely.
In that case, I suggest we start with the luggage. No telling what they may have in there.
Good idea. You and Professor Van Helsing can begin on that.
I would actually be...
Greg and I will start searching the emergency box from the outside. We'll reconvene in a bit to see what we found.
Anything I can do?
Your job is to make sure I don't freeze to death, you featherhead!
You'll be fine, you old coot.
Actually, he's right. You should stay with him. Make sure he doesn't go hypothermic. Elderly are the first to go.
Fine, but don't think I'm not sampling the wine in the meantime.
Then let's get to it, men. I sense we have quite the night ahead of us.
The group split off to complete their respective duties. Dr. Frankenstein and the Grim Man donned their coats and hats and braved the cold tundra. Dorian Gray and Eric scrounged through boxes to find the best wine in the tram. And Professors Van Helsing and Hyde began to rifle through boxes to find what they can. Professor Van Helsing's nerves seemed to be on edge, being assigned with Hyde.
Well, suppose that means we need to get to work.
Right, indeed.
Losh, these trunks are packed. We could survive out here for months if be.
Oh, let's hope not.
From above his head, Professor Van Helsing struggles to carry a large trunk.
Aye, you need help with that, Professor.
Nope, I'm fine. Just a moment.
The trunk begins to slip from Professor Van Helsing's grasp. Professor Hyde rushes to help.
You look like a twig ready to break. Let me help.
There really is no need, Jekyll.
What?
Jesus Christ!
What did you say?
Want to give a hand, Professor?
What did you say?
I was saying I didn't need your help.
No, I got that, but what did you call me?
Whatever are you going on about?
You called me Jekyll.
Huh?
You called me Jekyll. Just now.
You may have misheard me.
It was pretty clear.
I didn't say Jekyll. Who knows what a Jekyll is? I called you... Beckel.
Beckel.
Yes, Beckel. He's my dentist.
You called me by your dentist's name?
You two look very similar. Just a random connection. We all make those. Simple mistake. All it was.
Are you feeling alright, Van Helsing?
So of course I am Henry. Hyde! I meant Hyde, not Henry, because that isn't your name. You're Hyde, not Jekyll. Henry! You're Henry. Henry Hyde. I mean Jekyll Henry. No, Edward. Edward Hyde. Edward Hyde! Of course you are. You're Edward Hyde. I don't even know who Henry Jekyll is. I probably shouldn't have said that.
Do I know you? You act as if you're a stranger, yet I can't shake the idea we've met before.
Really, Hyde, I think it best we leave it as it is and go about our business.
Well, this is my business. Who are you? How do you know the name Jekyll?
I'm not sure I know who you're referring to.
Enough of the lies, damn it!
Oh, lies? You want to talk Professor? Or is it even really Professor? Because from what I can recall, you were the farthest thing from a scholar a man could imagine.
What are you going off about?
How fortunate that you're from Edinburgh. You know, I did my dissertation there. Wrote an entire thesis on the fundamentals of Scotland's society and culture. Met many scholars on my journeys, but never a Hyde. I did meet, however, an interesting chemist. A chemist by the name of Dr. Henry Jekyll.
You've met Jekyll?
Yes, I've met Jekyll. We shared tea. We fed the ducks. And then one day, out of the blue, he went missing. No notes, no signs, just a broken lock on a door and a ravaged laboratory. Everyone speculated an attack of some kind.
Oh, an attack?
After asking around, I found that their prime suspect was a new friend of Jekyll's, a man so lovingly referred to as Mr. Hyde. A sorrowful, spiteful grudge seen entering and exiting Jekyll's house at all hours of the night. Yes, he remained to be a prime suspect for some time, but as the months went on without any leads, they lost interest in the missing chemist. Almost everyone assumed you killed him. But I knew Jekyll. He was careful, intricate, brilliant, not a man you could simply just murder. But it was as I saw that destroyed laboratory that I remember him telling me about an experiment he was conducting. An idea, really. To take the evil in a man down to its chemical components, to separate them, He called it revolutionary. Said he nearly had it, he just needed a subject. Wasn't long after that day that reports of our mysterious Mr. Hyde began.
Oh, you can't really think
I've had speculations all this while, but now, as I look at you, I see a familiar man. A familiar beast, rather. After all that has happened, I now find myself across from a Scottish brute from Edinburgh by the name of Edward Hyde, who studies chemistry. Now, I don't believe in coincidences. Do you, Jekyll?
Fear grabbed hold of Professor Hyde, a man unfamiliar with the vice-like grip.
Van Helsing, I really understand your trepidation. I really do. But you mustn't allow your mind to run
Don't
amok.
try to fool me. I know you're him. I know you're really Jekyll.
Jekyll is dead! Yes, I knew him. That's why men spotted me there from time to time. And yes, I knew of his experiments as well. This transformation elixir he had was but a pipe dream. I tried to tell him, but he was never listen. You know how emphatical he was. One day, I come to his apartment to find his laboratory destroyed. Him at the center of it all, pale as snow, and foaming from the mouth.
The poisoning.
An accident. His math was off, I found after, but Jekyll was a good chemist. Never needed to be remembered as the foolish man he turned out to be.
So you aren't really him?
Oh, Professor! Use your logic! There was no way his potion could have really worked. What a childish fantasy.
I suppose you're right. It was a stretch.
I truly am sorry for your friend. But I am just a man, Professor. Nothing more.
You're right. I'm so sorry, Hyde.
And this story of him turning into me. That's rich. I am, and always have been known as Professor Edward.
Professor Van Helsing rushes to Professor Hyde's side as he doubles over in pain.
You alright?
Just a bit of indigestion. Like I was saying, I am, and always have been.
Professor Hyde suddenly shifts and convulses, taking on the mannerisms of another man.
Dr. Henry Jekyll at your service.
Hyde, what is going on?
Oh, Van Helsing, don't be so coy. It's just me, Dr. Jekyll. Hyde, my name is Hyde. I beg your pardon, but your name is Hyde. I am Jekyll.
Professor Hyde silenced himself with a hand over his mouth and threw a finger up to Professor Van Helsing, indicating he would like him to wait just a moment. Professor Hyde stepped away into a corner to have a conversation with his other half.
What in the hell do you think you're doing? The man asked for my name, I supplied it. We weren't talking to ya! That's not what it sounded like. I thought I told you to stop listening on my conversation. Technically, as long as I'm here, it's our conversation. You're a right bastard, you know that, Jekyll. Just a right bastard. I don't like the tone you've taken. If you get on me one more time about me tone, what are you gonna do? Hit me? We all have the same body, you idiot! Well, if you actually wanted to be part of this conversation, why don't you come out every once in a while and do it yourself? Now you're quiet. Coward! Do us both a favor and stay out of my head.
Professor Hyde turns to find a knowing Professor Van Helsing staring at him. It doesn't take long for either man to put the pieces together.
You've been standing there the whole time?
Yes.
You heard everything?
Every word.
So you know.
That you lied?
No! Now listen here, let's not blow this out of proportion!
You're him! You're Jekyll!
I am not Jekyll! But I understand how this looks bad.
Accidental poisoning my ass, you monster! You tried to make me think I was crazy, that you were nothing more than a man!
Look, I know it's quite confusing right now, but I have a good reason.
And what is that? What is your reason, Jekyll?
My name is not Jekyll. It's Hyde. And I can't tell you anything until you lower your voice.
Fine. Explain yourself.
Yes. His potion worked.
Your potion.
More so than he could have ever imagined.
Than you could have ever
Will
imagined.
you cut it out? I am not Jekyll. Yes, I lied to you. But I did it because the truth is much more complicated. Jekyll's experiments worked alright, but instead of making a perfect Jekyll, it made me. A new mind, a new soul, kept within the same body.
A split personality?
No, it's more than that. I was something primal, archaic. I was every deep secret and desire Henry had ever kept in his boring life. Now, I was released unto a world anew. So, for a few months, I was nothing but a complete carnage.
The tabloids, the reports.
Day and night, we struggled to control our body. A true battle of the minds it was. I remember seeing the fear grow in his eyes as I saw my crooked smile curl across his mouth. Ugh, how that first breeze of cool Scottish air hit me sweaty face when I prowled the streets. It was a wonderful time in our lives.
So you share the body?
In a way.
Give it to him. If what you say is true, let me hear it from him.
That's the thing, I can't. Used to be we fought for control, like devils over a hot soul. But several years ago, something happened to him. Something broke in his mind, or in his soul, and he just stopped fighting. When that happened, everything changed. For a good week I tore through the streets before I knew something was wrong. When I tried receding within me mind, I couldn't. He locked me out. He forced me to take control, to front for the both of us. And any progress I made with trying to force myself in, Jekyll would use all of his strength to shut me out once more.
But I heard him now. Through that mouth came his voice, not yours.
From time to time, he'll give a thought and a word, an action, nothing more though. Nothing ever enough to bring him into reality. And any time he does enter our world, it's just to force me out again.
So what, you're the victim here?
I am not meant for this world. I was meant to swing from street lamps and to burn down cities. I was a burning passion and a boiling rage with a cane. But now I am forced to live among your kind. All so delicate and proper with your laws and your morals. I had to learn to adapt.
So that's your plea. You've been domesticated.
You don't have to believe everything I say. Just know that I am working to make it right.
Make it right. You know the string of chaos you've laid in your wake? Every awful thing that you have done?
I know. But for the love of humanity, you have...
Humanity?
You can't tell the others. You tell them, and then any chance I have of making this right is gone. And I rot away in some Russian cell. We rot away. Don't do that to us, please. Just don't tell them.
It would serve you right to freeze to death in a prison. Henry Jekyll was a good man. You took away any light he could have brought into this world, and now you ask me for my trust.
Professor Hyde clings to Professor Van Helsing's arm, desperately pleading.
If not for me, then for him.
Professor Van Helsing looked to Professor Hyde. They shared a moment. Suddenly, the grim man burst through the door, shivering from the cold. The doctor followed suit, calmly brushing the snow from his hat and coat.
It's the damned ice age out there.
I told you should have bundled up against all that wind.
There's no protection against that. That's an ungodly wind.
Dorian Gray wheeled Eric in from the other car with several bottles of wine in hand. The man in the wheelchair was unamused at the large cask of rum in his lap, as well as Mrs. Gray's inebriation.
I told you, get this crate out of my lap before it breaks my legs.
A small price to pay for the finest rum within 100 miles.
What did you find?
We found quite a nice display of Sumerian reds that happened to pair perfectly with half a bottle of scotch.
Well, anything we could actually use.
Oh, shut up. If there's anything we could use right now, it's a bloody drink.
That's the spirit!
Mrs. Gray tossed an unopened bottle of wine to her new comrade. The grim man promptly drinks
If you
it.
don't move this crate now, I'll lose my legs by morning.
Not like you were using them with me wheeling your fat ass around.
What about you two? You all find anything?
A hateful look was shot at Professor Hyde.
Just some tarps and coats. We should be fine for the night.
And you, Professor? Anything you found interesting?
Nothing. Just the same old coats as him. We'll be able to make it through the night. Then once this is over, we'll never have to see each other again.
A hint of shame made its way across Professor Hyde's face.
Oh, someone not having a fun time.
And you are?
I'm having a grand time! Care for a nightcap?
I'll be fine.
Party pooper.
Perhaps we should hold off on the celebrations for a bit.
You're right! We have the entire night ahead of us. Why rush it?
He's saying to stop drinking altogether, you drunken prick.
And what reason would that be, Greg?
Maybe it's because you're an absolute atrocity when you're smashed.
And we may need to have our heads about us. We don't know what the night may bring.
What do you mean?
We may need to be a bit more alert than usual.
He's saying we could all be in danger.
What?
There isn't another train coming
No,
by.
no, it's not that. It's something we found
In the
outside.
emergency box, what was it?
It was just an old box full of maps and instructions, nothing of use. But that wasn't the most interesting thing we found.
Well, Are you gonna spit it out?
Well, we were inspecting the tram, trying to see what detached us and how
We didn't break off.
What? Of course we did. How else would we be here?
Well, there's a certain functions to these trams, a sort of fail-safe. It's there so that in case of emergency or fire,
There's
one
a
can...
lever. You pull it and the tram disconnects. When we looked it over, we saw it was pulled.
Could it have been an accident? Just a coincidence?
The lever is not going anywhere. Not easily. It's all these gears and parts of this one piece. Not to mention the bloody lever takes a good force to trigger it. Not something the breeze could just nudge over.
So what does that mean?
Well, it could mean a lot of things. First off,
Someone stuck us here on purpose. Someone on this
Oh,
tram.
God.
Well, we can't lose our heads. That can't be the only
The
answer.
lever is found on our side, meaning whoever pulled it is still here. They're still on this tram.
Who the fucking hell would do that?
It's one of us.
Oh dear God, I don't feel well.
Now, the brigade will still get here in some time, but we still don't know who disconnected the tram.
And we don't know why.
What kind of man could just strand a complete group of strangers in the middle of a blizzard?
Professor, it wasn't me.
No? And why should I believe you?
I'm here just as you. What would I gain?
Who knows? Who knows why you would do anything, Hyde?
What are you talking about over there?
Nothing, Dorian.
Actually, we were just talking about what kind of man would do this. What kind of man could trap a complete group of men out here? It'd
Professor?
have to be a loner. An absolute dredge of society. Someone who doesn't work well with others.
Think about what you're doing.
A mysterious, dangerous, despicable man who would stop at nothing to harm others.
What are you
I think he's just getting upset.
I mean, how much do we really know about each other? Who knows who we can trust? Who knows just which of us is two-faced?
I think I know what you're getting at.
You are all getting a little bit unhinged.
There is only one man here who could do this. One evil, snide stranger who could do this. And that man is...
Greg!
All men turned to the grim man on the crates, confused by this strange accusation. The grim man glared back at the young woman, pointing her finger at
The
him.
fuck do you say?
What? No, I was
Think
saying...
about it, men. The lone stranger who was crass and standoffish from the moment we met him. Who do you think
Is
of?
this because I didn't take to your flirting?
Dorian, you're just drunk.
Ah, but I do my best work inebriated. We are a room of scholars and artists alike. We have professors and doctors, musicians and philanthropists. But who here doesn't fit into any category? Who here do we know nothing about?
You can't be serious.
She does make a point.
What do you mean? Greg is... he's...
For the first time ever, words have failed the professor. He cannot think of anything he knows about the grim man. In fact, none of them so, just as Mrs. Gray had told them.
Greg.
I didn't disconnect the bloody tram.
Shh! Silence, the court is in session.
Oh, get fucked, you pompous asshole. I didn't do anything wrong.
Ah, hostility, the poor man's personality.
You all can't believe her, just because I don't have a bloody doctorate.
What are you then?
I'm none of your damned business.
So be it.
Mrs. Gray swiftly snatched the grim man's bag and scampered on top of the largest pile of trunks with a lovely agility. She began to rifle through the threadbare bag.
Hey, give that back.
Ah, but you forfeited your right to privacy the moment you decided to be so rude.
The professor stepped in front of the grim man to stop him from attacking Mrs. Gray and her investigation.
Don't you think this is a bit gratuitous?
Gratuitous is our middle name. You get used to it.
If you don't give that back now, I swear
Clothes
that...
among socks, among hats, a poor man's travel bag.
Mrs. Gray began to pull out the contents of the bag in a very disorderly fashion, making the grim man and Professor Van Helsing on edge. She took a large whiff from inside the bag.
Absolutely offensive. Telling me you are either in the middle of a boycott against cleaners or you cannot afford it. This brand is a foreign export, Havish & Company, an Australian trading operation, I believe, closed down a good few years ago. So, you're an Australian Brit without enough money to buy new things. Size and weight of it all tells me you're acquainted with travel but unfamiliar with organization. So we'll say, convict.
Convict. How do you get that?
Hear that accent? He's lower class, all right, but a true Londoner. Only reason a low-class Londoner would go to Australia would be against his own accord. Our lovely Greg spent some time in a prison camp.
You could enjoy this a bit less, you know.
But where's the fun in that?
Mrs. Gray pulled out a well-kept applewood box. As she opened it, the purple in her eyes deepened upon seeing the shine of silver.
What do we have here?
Those aren't yours. Put them down.
Hold still!
I'm drawing.
Straight razors, dual set, pristine condition, implying you know how to keep them, but they have seen good use. But the designs imply it's nearly 60 years old. Your little outburst implies sentimentality with a hint of greed. If I was to guess, gift turned profession? So, in conclusion, we have a London barber who was sent to Australia for a good amount of time, became a bit antisocial and unhinged, and is now on the run, most likely from the law, but metaphorically himself.
Dorian Gray's smile dropped as a memory was making its way into her mind.
This is all sounding a bit familiar, isn't it?
You had your fun. Now give it back.
A London barber on the run from Australia. Why can't I shake the feeling I've heard this before?
Deja vu. We all get it. Now give me back my things.
Running from the law, barber. I've heard this before.
A barber walks into a bar.
I'm serious! There was something in the news a good few years ago. Huge it was, almost as big as the Ripper murders.
I mean, honestly, what could a barber get in trouble for? A bad haircut?
Tell a bit too hot.
Too close of a shave.
Too close of a shave, that's it! You all remember the string of killings about 30 years ago?
What killings?
Oh, you mean the Jack? Seems about the right age.
No, it was prostitutes in the street. It was 24 men over the course of a few weeks, slit their throats in a barber shop, then what happened?
Your imagination never ceases to amaze me.
No, I remember it too. Huge scandal. The man slit their throats and put their bodies into meat pies. I haven't had them since.
See, it was a penny dreadful, it was. A string of pearls, if I remember correctly. What was the bastard's name?
Give me back my things.
Billy Barber of Allison Road, the monstrous hairdresser of Lanslow Lane.
I won't repeat myself again. Give it back.
Benji Balthazar, the abominable stylist of Marrow Way.
Sweeney Todd, the demon barber of Fleet Street.
That's the bitch!
The grim man broke free from the professor's grips and pulled a knife out from his pocket. He pointed it at Mrs. Gray, waiting for her to turn around.
Sweeney Todd, the demon barber of Fleet Street. Heard he was hung in Australia, but I suspect... Well, hello there.
My things now.
All you had to do was ask.
Dorian Gray, a little too calmly, handed over Mr. Todd's bag. He quickly swiped the sack out of her hand.
You're really him. You're Sweeney Todd.
I'm not Sweeney fucking Todd. You're really going to trust her?
You're right. Who would listen to little old me?
As Todd walked away, Mrs. Gray pulled the razors out from behind her back.
Only an innocent man carries Sweeney Todd's blades, of course.
Sweeney Todd returned his blade's point to Dorian Gray's face, whose eyes have flashed now to a vibrant velvet.
Get your mitts off my blades.
Funny how we get so attached to things so easily, Greg.
Dorian, give him the blades.
We love them and cherish them, sometimes even giving them as gifts.
Gray, the man has a knife in your face.
We even inscribe them like love notes.
Dorian, give the man his straight razors.
Like this. To my Mr. T from your love it. Now that isn't the name Greg, now is it? What are these, a wedding gift?
The grim man tried to take the blades from her. He aggressively swiped at her, but she kept possession of them.
Ah, hit a nerve, did we? Who's this love it of yours?
Keep prying. See what happens.
Jesus Christ, it's him. It's Todd.
I'm not Sweeney Todd.
Good thing, too, otherwise we would really be dealing with a maniac. Slaughtered nearly 2,000 men in his own shop, then he took his razor and minced them into meat pies.
Dorian, shut up!
My heart broke for her too, darling thing, all alone with that deranged psychopath.
Miss Gray, I'd suggest easing up a bit.
Why, you heard what he said. It's not him. No need to worry. Our harmless Greg wouldn't hurt a fly. But that Todd, murdering all those innocents, feeding them to the folks of London, keeping that woman captive all that while, what a true monster he was. What an awful, despicable, devilish...
Suddenly and violently, the grim man turned and stabbed Dorian Gray in the chest. Everyone shouted and exclaimed in fear. Panic began to set in to everyone on the tram.
Shut up. For 1 second, shut up!
Professor Hyde and Dr. Frankenstein grappled with the grim man. Professor Van Helsing rushed to aid Mrs. Gray.
Jesus, don't move!
You stabbed me!
I got him!
Where's the knife?
He saw the blade still protruding from Dorian Gray's chest.
Oh dear God.
We need to keep you still. Stay with us, okay? Whatever you do, don't panic.
Don't panic. Do you know what this jacket is made of? Bavarian silk. Do you have any earthly idea how expensive that is?
I told you not to wear it on the train.
Well, excuse me if I prefer to exhume a sense of decorum. Would you prefer if I were in my negligee?
Quit bitching about the coat and listen to the professor.
You need medical attention as soon as possible, but I think you'll be fine as long as we don't disturb the injury.
Let me take care of that.
I wouldn't...
Oh, that's not good.
Why did you do that?
Professor Van Helsing picked Dorian Gray up and gently laid her on one of his crates. He began to unbutton her coat and shirt so he could attend to the wound.
You aren't supposed to remove a foreign body from a wound.
Eager to get me undressed already?
We need to work quickly if we want to stop the...
He ripped open her shirt and gawked at what he saw. Or, more rather, what he did not see.
She's not bleeding.
Did he miss her?
I was standing a foot away from the bitch. I didn't miss.
Well, there isn't even a scratch from the blade, let alone a wound.
Ah, see, Todd, this was your first mistake. Now I've got to have this mended. Who do you think will pay for that? And secondly, this little tool you used to shank me, not worth the metal it's made of. See, if you wanted to kill me, you don't use a knife. Knives only work on men, and I am so much more.
What is going on? You should be bleeding half to death now.
You want to tell them, or shall I?
You do it. You've always had a sense for the dramatic.
No, that's really saying something coming from you.
Tell us what? You're some kind of magician, is that it?
Being a magician would imply that there is a secret behind the curtain, but trust me, I am the real thing.
What kind of thing would that be?
I suppose there are many words for what I am, yet there is no perfect word that summarizes exactly my state of being. The Anglo-Saxons, though, got it the closest with their interpretation of the idea of immortality.
Immortality? That's ridiculous.
The woman took a damn knife to the chest and didn't shed a drop of blood. What more proof do you need?
But immortal.
Immoral.
No, immortal.
Well, let's see where the night takes us.
What in the hell are you?
I, darling, am just like you. I am one of those crawling, malignant beasts that prey on the things in the night. The only difference between us is that you are but a child, playing pretend. You think a simple barber from a filthy burrow and a knife are the worst things to sulk in the shadows? You have no semblance of true monstrosity, Todd, of true hideousness. An inch of darkness will hold more horrors than you could ever imagine. I've learned this truth the hard way. Over years and years, I sat in that darkness learning things about this world of ours, such as the concept of manners.
As she made her way to the fiend, the group of men could have sworn her lavender eyes turned to a deep, inhuman purple. A horrific shade that can no longer be replicated, for respect of what lied in the woman's words as she spoke.
For instance, it is quite rude in most cultures to stab anyone without their consent. Try to consider that next time when you get too eager with your anger.
Mrs. Gray turned and delivered a perfect punch to Mr. Todd's left cheek. Sweeney Todd collapsed into Professor Hyde and Dr. Frankenstein. Mrs. Gray pours herself a glass of wine.
That was for the coat, you inbred.
I don't believe it.
You're telling me. You know how many tailors I've burned through trying to get this jacket made? 7. I ran through 7 bloody tailors like they were cigarettes. And now here I am in the middle of a tundra with a tear and nary a needle in sight.
How are you all so calm about this?
You were stabbed. Full on, knife in the ribs, stabbed.
And by Sweeney Todd, no less. Who could have ever seen that coming?
That's the part that stands out to you.
Any man with a £50,000 warrant on his head always catches my eye.
£50,000?
Christ on a boat, that bloody much.
Celebrity will get you far in this world. In our little homicidal maniac's case, he will be quite a considerable payday.
50,000 split 3 ways.
Free? Where'd you get that?
Victor, you and myself.
How can you speak of money? Going to ignore the fact she's immortal now?
We did restrain the man.
That lot of good that did ruined a perfectly good jacket.
Enough! You have acted too cavalier, all of you. There'll be no speaking of money or of bargaining until we find out exactly what it is you are.
Dear God, you're still on that.
What is the matter with you all? She should be dead right now. That declares a sort of explanation.
Who are you to demand anything? Some third-class scholar who gets his rocks off to Greek sculptures and Renoirs is going to tell me what to do?
Kind Dorian. Probably the first time he's met one of your kind.
It's one of your kind.
Don't get yourself into a tizzy. I'm not going to eat you or anything. In fact, at one point I was just like you. And just like you, I presume, I loved my life and feared my death. Don't you, Van Helsing? Do you love your life?
Of course.
And if given the choice, would you rid yourself of that looming death we all share? That, I suppose, is where our similarities end. I did not hesitate at that question. Death was the treacherous, haunting rain that beat at my windows at all hours of the night, drop after drop as the minutes and years rolled by, growing ever so closer to the day where the glass would break and the rain would take me whole. I sought to avoid the rain. All I had to do was make a simple deal with a simple man in a simpler place and time.
A devil's bargain. You sold your soul to receive divinity.
Not divinity, no. I received a painting.
A painting? Of what?
A portrait of myself, of course. A simple portrait, but with such care and detail in each inch of it that the very essence of the moment was captured. As you looked at it, you knew exactly how it was. Who I was. Had I really dealt with the devil that day, I would indeed say that Lucifer fancies himself an artist. It was so beautiful, that painting. So beautiful, I think that a bit of me stayed with it, just to keep it young. All I know is that the moment that the last brush was put down and the oils dried, I faced no illness, death, insecurity, or sin. The rain finally stopped beating at my window. As such, I dedicated my endless life to seeing and experiencing all these beautiful things in this open world of ours. My latest fancy, of course, is our very own Eric.
Oh, you flatter me.
He's proper now, but just hear him on an organ, and you would understand what Abraham felt when he spoke to God himself. I felt so moved, I just had to share his beauty with the rest of the world.
You've gained immortality to be a tour manager.
All right, I see you're confused, or you all must be to some degree. However, I am still reeling quite a bit from tonight's events, so I will limit the remaining questions allotted to me to 3. After that, you may find me at the bottom of a few bottles of wine. So, have at it, gents. Well, I haven't got all night.
How old are you?
There we go, a bit rude, but a good start. I do believe this October will make 304.
Good God!
You ever met anyone famous?
Marie Antoinette, Sir Isaac Newton, and Oscar Wilde.
How's it an end?
Has what an end?
This, anomaly. Will your painting wear off?
Now, what's the bloody point of the thing if it wears off? No, I'm glad to say that it doesn't wear off. I am perpetually, emphatically, here to stay.
But how can you be
That was 3, my scarlet lover awaits.
Mrs. Gray trunks and leaves the car to find another bottle of wine to drown herself in. The remaining strangers circled around the unconscious body of Sweeney Todd.
Well, what do you all think?
I think we'll be out of wine by sunrise.
Not the wine! Him! Dorian, Sweeney Todd, can we trust any of this?
Well, given the evidence, we haven't much of a choice, do we?
Then we are in agreement that this bloke is really Sweeney Todd, and Dorian is really what she says she is.
Makes the stay much more interesting if that's what it is.
Then what the hell do we do with a bloody murderer and an immortal?
Calm down. Once the brigade comes, I'm sure there'll be an investigation into how the train derailed in the first place. Odds are they'll narrow it down to a lot of them, and with a few statements from us, they'll give Todd the justice he deserves back in London.
You realize he'd never see trial. He'd much sooner hang than be in any sort of court.
Then perhaps that is the justice that is needed. Need I remind you what this man has done, what he is capable of? There are nearly 24 graves in London with his signature. If given the chance, he could have killed any single one of us on board.
There ain't nothing logical about this. We're sitting here talking about sending a man to the gallows.
If you have an issue with how we handle the situation, you are more than free to stand up for him once the officials arrive. It's no saying you should check who you align yourself with, Hyde.
It's just bad fortune, talking such dark business. Bad fortune is all.
Well, I know I haven't made it this far in my life to have my throat slit on a bloody tram.
Then it's decided. We keep him restrained until they arrive, then turn him in.
And the warrant money, how do we split that?
There it is. I don't care, just so long as the lot of you are out of my sight once we start moving again.
We'll get the ropes and whatever we can find to make ourselves a restraint.
Find yourself some blankets and coats in doing so. It's going to be a cold night tonight.
As he spoke, a terrible shiver crawled up the professor's spine. Though he brushed it off to the frigidity of his entrapment, he detected a sense of familiarity in it. It was the same nerve-grinding feeling that he felt all those years ago, staring at those amber eyes in the dark as he, only a boy at the time, feared death for the first time. But as he soldiered on and prepared for a sleepless night, he had no way of knowing what terrible things the twilight would bring. After all, Van Helsing thought to himself, more horrors lie in an inch of darkness than one could ever perceive. And, with that dying sun falling behind the cusp of the horizon, there was quite a lot of darkness indeed. And in that darkness would forge a nightmare on a Russian tram.